Welcome back to the Growth Playground. Today we're going to do two things. We're going to do a big update on everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks with the Growth Playground. There's been some changes, so you better stick around to watch and hear all the things that have been happening with the Growth Playground in the last couple of weeks. But then we're also going to do a Q&A. So we've got 6, maybe even more questions that we get asked all the time about starting particularly early stage businesses, early stage product ideas, early stage kind of startups. And we're going to go through those questions as quickly as we can to give you loads of amazing value, super quick. Let's get going. Bex, how you doing? It's been a tumultuous couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster. I'm good. Yes. So yesterday we decided to drop a bit of a bombshell, didn't we? And change the format. It's a decision we've not taken lightly. But I feel good for it. Really good. And I've had some really lovely feedback. Essentially, for those who weren't keeping totally up to date with things, the Growth Playground was going.
There are people that haven't been listening to every single thing that we've ever said.
I mean,
Surely
our
not.
mums know exactly what's happening, but there might be some other people who are.
Hey, Mum.
So it was going to be this community of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, startup founders, etc., and essentially teachings that we do in growth programs, incubators, accelerators, also welcoming in specialists, and essentially trying to just get as much bang for your buck as possible from a fairly nominal membership fee, and making sure that you could get what you need and get unstuck when you could. And do you know what? Interestingly, even with an MVP, which was nowhere near what we wanted to do, had the plan for, etc., it was still too much. And it's, we've had some really interesting learnings, even after all the foundational conversations, the research, talking to people about potential solutions, trialing things, etc. It still wasn't quite lining up, was it? So we've taken decision to roll it back because we're allowed to do that. Everything is an experiment. We are the makers of our own destiny. So we've shut certain elements down, but the plan is to obviously still try and help people, get them unstuck, try and, provide some insights, but via this medium instead.
Yeah, it was a tough decision for sure. But I think what we both had to do was really dig deep into what was giving us energy rather than taking energy away from us. And ultimately kind of just be really open to reading the signs, because whilst we had built up an early kind of beta group, actual participation in the actual Circle community wasn't enormous.
Yep.
And that was kind of giving us some elements of doubt about whether or not this was really going to be the right platform and the right kind of solution to engage people with their challenges that they've got around being, entrepreneurship and starting businesses. Yeah. But also, it kind of got to the point where we really kind of questioned whether it was the right thing for us, and whether this was the long-term business that we really wanted to build. And I think when we both kind of really looked deep into that, we both realised that, I definitely realised, and I had this kind of reaffirmed to me yesterday, that I absolutely love the engagement side. I love talking to people. I love doing videos. I love content. I love kind of that advice, coaching, and I love getting hands-on with people to kind of solve their problems in, much more kind of rolling up the sleeves and doing the work, rather than necessarily kind of being a community manager or doing that everyday management of community and trying to get people going and whatever else. And actually kind of reading those two signals, both from the external perspective of what people are really doing and how they're engaging or not, and how our kind of energy and what we really wanted to do. And it kind of made sense that this isn't the right thing, but actually we've definitely learned is that there is a big enough challenge here that people are having. And the amount of people now that we're ironically talking to since the kind of announcement that we were going to just start to kind of roll things back, now people are really kind of taking a different kind of engagement, right? And that's why we're kind of taking a different approach. We're going to do much more content, We're going to kind of focus on supporting people through that, through those kind of different channels, YouTube, LinkedIn particularly, but also connecting with people on a more of a one-to-one basis. If you think back to when you kind of came up with that initial idea, one of the things that you were super keen on was the fact that you've actually got loads of people that you can just pick the phone up to and talk to them about some of the specific challenges that you're having, some of the difficulties in starting up or whatever it is. And you've always loved the fact that you've got that kind of that network, and not everybody has that network, right? And so the intention of the Growth Playground was to be, in some ways, kind of to be that for people, to be that kind of network, to be able to support people when they need some specific piece of advice. And I think you and I both want to be able to provide that in some way. Of course, we can't have everyone picking up the phone and constantly calling us, but we want to be able to provide that kind of network for people, I think, in an ongoing way. We just don't know exactly what that's going to look like, right?
No, I completely agree. It's definitely something to be worked out. I know it was interesting when we said yesterday, like, we are taking a temporary pause to work out what the pivot is. Had multiple people come back and say, well, could we not just do it on WhatsApp and it'd be a small thing? And I'm like, hell yeah. Like, without a shadow of a doubt. If you are sad that this thing doesn't exist and that element, which I think is one of the most important things, isn't going to exist, then I'm very happy for that to happen. And also, I've sort of said to everybody that was involved, and you know what, we had a good 50 odd people who were on the main list wanting to get involved, and for one reason or another, the timing wasn't right, or they were too busy, etc. You know, there's still an open door policy. And I have that when I meet people on courses. And I had the benefit of that only last week when I was thinking, what's the best way of doing this? What should I be doing? Going round in knots. And that's the ironic thing. Even as a practitioner of these things and a coach, I can't coach myself. I still need someone to soundboard off. And I'm very lucky in the fact that I've got friends who are just very wise people, or coaches, or, you know, business type mentors that I can have varying conversations to try and work this out and get unstuck. And that's really important to me, and having that network. And I think that the WhatsApp group as it stands and will potentially grow will be that, because, and it was never supposed to be this hierarchical thing where like me and you were the overlords and feeding information down. Like, that is not the dream. I had this like reciprocal utopian dream where we all kind of like help each other. And I don't know what planet I don't know whether like Trump has just crushed my dreams, but you know, I think there's something in that, and I genuinely believe that, and it's a value I hold very dearly. So that will definitely be factored in, and whatever we do going forward, because I think that firstly, like, there's so much knowledge trapped in silos, and people can help each other. There is a want to, but most importantly, there's that self-efficacy thing where essentially when you flex that muscle, answer the question, you're like, holy shit, I am actually pretty knowledgeable and pretty capable. And that helps people with their confidence. And you have this upward spiral. It's the broaden and build theory by Barbara Friedrichsen, where, you know, the more stuff you do that shows you're capable, the more confidence you get. And, you know, and it just grows and grows. So that peer-to-peer thing is really important. It's just a case of how we go about it. And we could have gone down a path of really aggressive. We could have gone down the same way as some of the other community builders build, and notifications pinging every 2 minutes, and why aren't you, you know, you okay, hun, what's happening? You know, that was never our style, because at the end of the day, we needed people to kind of lean in, self-select, and want to be there and want to participate. And for one reason or another, like, the format doesn't work. It doesn't mean it's intrinsically broken. And do you know what? If anything, the thing that stopped me putting a pin in it for a while was like my ego. You know, oh, I'm someone who builds stuff for a living or helps people build things. Like, are people just going to think I'm shit? No, I'm not. I was always experimenting, but I had to have a few words with myself about the fact that, like, it's fine. Like, my core business, which, you know, I spend the majority of my time on and it gives me all my income, is not going to disappear overnight if I go, do you know what? That idea didn't work. Because that's the thing. You've got to be vulnerable. You know, I watched a lot of Brené Brown yesterday before I sent that email. And courage and vulnerability. You know, you've got to have those things, and you've got to be okay with failing, because if you're not okay with failing, you're not going to go out and do big things. fine, fuck it. Like, it's all good. I'm good. You good?
Well, I'm good.
I'm feeling
good.
great about it. Like,
I feel brilliant. Like, it felt like a weight had been lifted.
okay.
But also, it didn't feel like the end either. It felt like the burden of not really knowing what it was and trying to force it unnecessarily. I felt like that burden had gone.
Yeah.
But it feels like there's a new opportunity that's straight away opened, which is that now we come back to what we were doing before, which is answering questions, creating content, talking about what it's like to kind of go through these things. We've got different experiences that we can bring to that. So I feel like we're in a great place, really great place. And I'm excited to kind of go into the next phase and figure out what this thing is. And who knows, it may be that we come back to some kind of community thing in the future, and we've got some great lessons that have happened, because what we want, that will happen. I think this is what I believe, right? Is that will happen when people are pulling it out of us rather than us pushing it and forcing it upon them. When it's like, this is the obvious thing because everyone's saying that this is what they need, then I think that's when we kind of look at it again.
Exactly. And I think that, you do things that don't scale. When I spend far too much time on phone calls trying to help people get unstuck, and when the WhatsApp group is too big or too busy, then we do something about it. That's absolutely fine. I think, it was the curse of the expert, and the fact that we are both course creators, facilitators. We have an insane amount of stuff that can be not only spoken about, but tools, spreadsheets, things that would be useful. That I was like, I don't want to feel like I'm gatekeeping, because that is not a fun place to be. But also, I was like, do I do it like this, or do we provide it like that? And it stopped being fun. And the whole thing was, the growth playground. This whole thing was based on play. It was a case of like being in flow, playing to your strengths, doing the things that you love. And I think, so not only there's that two sides of the thing, isn't it? Was it bang on right for the people in it? No, but some elements were loved and lent into. And on the other side, are we playing to our strengths? Is it the things that we truly want to do? Because that's the thing, realistically, there's no point doing a business if you can't see yourself in it, in that format for some period of time. So there's never one answer, there's never one solution. And if anything, like, these last probably 3 months have been more insightful in terms of what this truly feels like. Even though I've worked in startups, like, to actually be front and center in it, like I think I'm going to be a much better coach. I was pretty fucking good anyway, but I think I'm going to be awesome now. Because, like the 3 a.m. thing of like, oh, what should I do? What should I do? Like, that occasionally happens as a business owner, but to nowhere the extent of which, building this thing out. And I think it's going to be some interesting talking points.
Yeah. So right. You're a fucking good coach. And actually over the last 2 months, really, I've just lent into that. I've basically eaten up most of Bex's time when not doing other coaching and working on programs. Pretty much I've just like been you've been my pretty much permanent coach for the last 2 months.
But the thing is,
thank you.
But you were pivoting. It was interesting, wasn't it? Because at the end of the day, like, you are known for one thing very specifically, but actually you have this real unique capability, and even things I've known you for years, and I didn't know that there was this Venn diagram of skills, and how many businesses that you've led and been a backed entrepreneur, you're hands-on and you develop things, and there was this, and I was like, how on earth did I not know this Venn diagram? I'm like, why are you positioned over here when actually I know shadow people would want you over there doing that thing? And that's been a really interesting period and lovely to see, because I think that you are in a sweet spot now where you're doing things that really excite and interest you.
Yeah. That's been so helpful. I've needed that, and I've needed to go backwards as well, like you say, to kind of identify those. Like, what is that like? You can only tell who you are when you like connecting the dots, looking backwards or whatever it is. And I think that is totally right with me. I think that one of my challenges has always been, and this is a familiar challenge to anyone starting anything as well, is how do I present a version of myself which is specific and positioned in the right way so that people can go, I know who this person is and how to hire them.
Yeah.
Because I've got all of these different capabilities and experiences from lots of different areas, from teaching to product to managing director of companies to startups to building analog synthesizers to all these weird and wonderful things, right? Partnerships, relationship, all that kind of transformation stuff. Corporate, startup, third sector, blam, bam, bam, all the areas really. And actually, weirdly, most of what I've been doing recently has been kind of around early stage marketing and product. I've never had the title of a marketer.
Yeah.
But I'm probably more marketing than I am anything else at the moment, which is kind of an interesting thing. And we're going to explore a question about marketing in a minute, so maybe some more of that will come up. But yeah, it's really interesting having that opportunity to look backwards and have someone like yourself that is able to pull out some of that stuff, kind of unwind, the tangled mess that's in your mind to kind of get to this point where you've got some clear direction. And it's been brilliant. And it's manifesting in a updated LinkedIn profile and all that kind of thing, and that's going to constantly evolve. I've got some ideas about how I want to shape my LinkedIn much more clear on all that sort of stuff. Which is great. Amazing.
I find that ironic because for me personally, I don't have that. I've tried to lean into that previously, and this is going to sound really wanky, but I'm more of a feeling than a thing. And I'm cool with that, because at the end of the day, I know people. I've been hired recently just because I'm a vibe, to be a bit of a vibe in a room, and that is good because they know that I come with a load of knowledge, a load of skills. We don't need to know the specifics. She will just be helpful, and that is an awesome place to be. And you don't.
It's bang on for you though.
That
is bang on.
It's and I think.
Amazing.
It's
well, no,
wonderful.
it's not because it's not just a vibe. You it's like that kind of phrase, isn't it? Like, I hired Bex for the vibe, but what I got was like so much more. And I think that's the reality. Like, you might be hired for that, but what they end up getting brings so much more than just that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm like, thankfully I'm capable. But,
sorry if that sounded really patronising.
No. But it's true though, because at the end of the day, I could get my knickers in a twist about like, oh well, but I've got a master's in this and I can do that, and it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, like, and I've always aspired to this, because one of the first coaches I ever worked with is just a wise man to have in a corner. And I've always and there was always an aspiration to be kind of on that journey. And I'm certainly not, I wouldn't ever class myself as wise, but I'm a useful multi-tool to have around. And I generally pick up the energy, and sometimes that's all that's needed. Yeah. Because there will be an answer there, and that's absolutely fine. And it's playing to your strengths.
Yes.
So, there you go.
Absolutely. So there we go. That's where we're at.
Yes.
We have updated on Growth Playground. It is different. Yes. Things are going to change. They are changing. They have changed. We've scaled back certain bits. We're leaning in more, I hope, to these kind of things of creating some good content for people to vibe off, but also to maybe learn one or two things about how to or how not to do stuff, from some of the failures that we've had. Should we go into our... I was going to say rapid fire round, but it's probably not going to be rapid.
It might be rapid about us.
It might be a bit more than a meander.
Yes,
but maybe like a strong stroll.
Nice. I like that a lot. Yeah. Brisk walk.
Brisk walk. Let's briskly walk into our Q&A. So should we just go for it?
Yes, I need to get that list of questions. Sorry, I'm not very professional. Again, you see, I'm adorable. I just don't turn up. It's fine. I'm not like Spencer. Spencer's the organised professional here. So let's have a look. So it's me the first question, isn't it?
It's you first. I'm going to ask you a question. So these are all questions that have been asked to us in the, recently. in kind of events that we've been, but the questions that kind of come up quite often, a lot of these as well, when we're kind of at entrepreneurship events or whatever else. So let's start with the first one. It's about marketing. It's actually the kind of topic that we were just talking about. But how important is it to have an understanding of marketing when starting a startup?
Very.
Done.
You
Rapid fire,
exactly,
right there.
boom, done. Like mic drop. I'm leaving. There's different elements. So there is marketing as we classically think it, and it's a case of knowing, what the campaign is, the execution, etc. And that is helpful. But for me, there's other elements which are far more important. So the strategy, go-to-market strategy is absolutely essential for you to have at least a working understanding of it, because realistically, you need to know where your customers live, what channels you want to operate on, what doors you're planning on knocking on, and how you're going to execute that. Now, the specifics of the day-to-day tactics, not necessary. If you have a marketing function or someone can do that for you, fine. But you still need to understand that, and that's a question that will be asked, and especially if you're going for an investment, and even not, you need to have a plan there. So you need to have an idea. Secondly, branding yourself. So there will be the company brand, but personal brand is everything these days, because most people don't pay attention to the business brand pages on LinkedIn, etc. They want to know you, and that being able to turn up authenticity, people getting to know you as a human being, because people buy from people. They need to know, like, trust you, and you need to be out there talking about what you're up to, creating lines, not dots, so they see you, they hear from you frequently. It's about the same kind of stuff, and you are able to execute at least at that level. I think that's incredibly essential, because there is that frequency illusion where the more you see something, the more recognizable it is, the more you trust it. So yeah, you need to be out there 100%. Lastly, in terms of investment, building in public, talking about what you're up to, the fact that things are happening, that you are a backable person that gets shit done and gets things moving, without a shadow of a doubt. So even at the minimum, know where you're going to go to for your customers, how you're going to speak to them, what mediums, and then be able to at least execute on some decent kind of like low-level social media, which gets your message out. I think that is the bare minimum, I'd say. What do you think?
Love that. Can I just add one thing, which is coming from my new-ish perspective on the intersection of product and marketing. And I think there's this two-way relationship between product and with marketing, and particularly when thinking about marketing, specifically marketing your product, which is the particular branch of marketing, if you like. Yeah. There's this amazing book. I've had it lying on my desk, as I do sometimes, by April Dunford. Nice. Called Obviously Awesome. Absolutely brilliant book. She's the master of positioning, particularly. And positioning, I think, is something that you've got to be thinking about when thinking of a startup. You don't necessarily, as Beck says, you don't need to know about how to run campaigns and all that kind of stuff. You need to know strategically what it is that you're going to do. Positioning is the starting point for me, or one of the starting points. Positioning, by her definition, is the act of deliberately defining how you are the best at something that a defined market cares a lot about. Nice. So there's two things in there that I think are super important. Firstly, it's about defining your market, identifying who your ideal customer is, and making sure that you're really specific about that, as specific as you possibly can be, as niche as you can be. And then the second thing that's really important about that is defining how you're the best at something, which is about differentiation. It's about how are you different, why are you better than anyone else, what is it that you bring to the table, and that has a knock-on effect, of course, about what you say to people about yourself, what your website is, how that kind of looks, and it all kind of translates into messaging, which is a slightly different thing, but it's basically how you verbally articulate who you are and what you're doing. But it's also about how you kind of agree or figure out what products you want to be building as well. Yeah. Because if your product isn't serving those people that you've closely defined, and if you're competing in too big a red ocean, if you like, or if you're doing everything that everyone else is doing and it's not differentiated, then it's really difficult one to be able to kind of get right. So I think it's hugely important. Yes, you've got to understand marketing, but not everything, but some very specific things that are kind of startup related are super, super, super important.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, right, to your turn. Here's the question bank.
Hit me.
How would you advise people moving from a full-time thing to a startup? What would you suggest doing?
Yeah, so the first thing, so I'm going to give you some bullet points, straightforward bullet points. I'm going to expand on each of them. The first one is understand your why. And we hear this all the time about people's purpose, and it's kind of difficult to understand. And it does change sometimes. You can get some nuances, but I think it's really important to understand why you want to change from where you are into something different. Why do you want to take that leap from something which is serving you well, that's paying your bills, and you want to take away all of that? You want to take away all of that security and go into this high risk situation. You've got to really understand why it is that you want to do that. If it's because you want to become a founder and you've always wanted to be a founder and you want to own your startup, then that's a decision you've got to really understand. You've got to understand that why. If it's because you want to work for yourself, I can guarantee you that you're not really ever working for yourself when you're a startup. You're either working for your customers, or you're working for your shareholders, or you're working for other people. You're not generally, unless you're incredibly lucky or unless you're incredibly unsuccessful, you're generally not working, making every single decision based on your kind of your whims and whatever else. So really understand what it is. If, however, your why is because there's a thing that needs to exist in the world, then that's a really interesting one. And that's one of the things that I think you should really lean into. So that's the first one. Understand your why. Why is it you want to move? Why is it that you want to start a startup? The second point is try and figure out like what you can do to free up some time whilst you're employed that enables you to do something to advance and progress your startup idea. Now, that might be that you go, well, actually, I'm on Netflix 2 hours a day. Can I free up a little bit of that and carve out some time to start to think about my startup and start to think about maybe develop the skills that you need, maybe do some research, maybe speak to people, maybe find out in the market research about what's going on in the world and what you could do. Try and figure out a way to carve out some time without taking that enormous leap, so that you can ultimately see if you can start to do a side hustle. And I think the next thing is kind of point 3 really is there a way that you can run something, a small something, to be able to validate the market, to prove out your concept, to prove out your ideas, whilst maintaining your full-time job, rather than, ditching all of that and putting yourself in the frying pan. Burning the shit. There's loads of analogies right there, but I've got them all wrong. So that's the other thing is, can you do this? Can you run this as a side hustle? Point 4 is, again, you haven't even, I'm not telling you to leave your job yet. I will do that, but don't leave your job yet. Up to point 4 is, what can you do in your current role that will help you with that transition? Are there things that you can learn from other people in the organization? Can you actually go and sit a bit closer to the marketing person if you want to have that skill? The kind of things we just talked about there. Mm-hmm. Find out what's going on and what those people are doing. Learn some skills from other people around you just by proximity that are kind of going to be useful for you when you take your startup and you kind of split out and kind of go for your startup thing. What else can you learn about the industry as well? Because actually, if you've been in an industry for a long time, then there's a really good chance that you'll have some insights that other people won't have. I was talking to an accountant of mine, my accountant, a good friend of mine, and he was like, come and help me start some businesses. I was like, I'll come and sit with you in your accountancy firm for a week and we'll figure out all the things that are broken with accountancy. And it's only from that kind of observation that that I can get an understanding of accountancy, so that I can try to help him about what problems we might solve and what kind of ideas there might be around the accountancy world. I don't know that, he does, but he's not able to kind of see it. So kind of observe it all and see what insights you can gather, see what you can learn, all that kind of thing. Try and build on the side as much as you can until you can't anymore. And it's at that point when you can no longer build it on the side, when you've got some traction, when you've got some things that are happening, then you kind of go, all right, now may be the time. The other point is, I would definitely think about how many months worth of, and I'm talking months, not weeks, how many months worth of runway And by runway, what I'm basically saying is how long can you survive without any revenue? That's, that's the kind of cutoff until it breaks. How many months can you have of runway before you have to kind of get another job again? If you can get 3 to 6 months, that's the kind of area I think that you have to have as a minimum before taking the leap to start your own thing. Any other thoughts?
I think the last one would be network. Create a network, other people doing similar things, because you will be in different boats but in the same seas. And if you are lucky enough to be working as, just for yourself and you are your own boss, I can guarantee you've never had a bigger arsehole of a boss. Because no other boss will expect you to work all the hours of God sends, give you a kick in at 3 a.m. if you haven't achieved X, Y, and Z. And just be like, weren't you capable when you were employed? What on earth made you think that you could do this? Those will be some little voices that will appear. And if you don't have the right people around you, and I'm not necessarily talking friends and family, because they will be like, why did you leave that really well-paid job that you were awesome at? We need to keep as many poops out the pool as possible, but you need some cheerleaders around you, some people who are going to be honest with you, are going to help you when you need helping, have straight conversations, and make you realise that you're not doing this alone. So that would be my only other thing. Like, build that out, have a bit of a plan, because you will have this initial dopamine spike. We're like, yeah, this is amazing, let's go. And then it'll be like, oh no, what did I do? And it will be a roller coaster. And the quicker that you find your tribe where you can go, oh, right, okay, so we're all experiencing the same thing and we're all getting through it. Okay, we can do this. We can calm ourselves a little bit and get going. That would be my last point.
Love it. Brilliant. Let's go onwards.
Okay.
Question 3. Okay, this is for you.
Thank you.
What if the business I'm considering is in a saturated market?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It depends on the business. And it's a really hard one to say. So realistically, if we're talking barbers, lawyers, vets, do you know what? As long as the marketplace is big enough and you can differentiate a little bit, yeah, fine. Like, try it, test it, etc. There's always a million lawyers out there. Like, who cares? In terms of more specific things. So if it's a tech business, for example, and you're planning on doing the exact same thing and you can't disrupt that with either price, product, positioning, etc., don't bother. Like, it is not worth your time and effort. If your plan is to go up against someone who has a huge market share and is universally loved, and realistically the only people that they haven't managed to acquire are those who are not interested, it ain't worth doing. Like, go and pick something else. What else did I have on my little list? I think the most important point is, do you really have to do that business? Is that what you really want to do? Because just because it's an obvious thing, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for you. So if you want to go into a saturated market and you feel like you can disrupt it, or you've got a point of difference, make sure you really love it enough, because you're going to have to go out there and be in a noisy environment. And if you're not truly committed to it and it's not the thing that really lights you up and you're really passionate about, it's not worth doing, because it's going to be a struggle, because you're going to have to be really noisy and do things differently and be engaging and all those things, as well as run the actual blinking business. So, that is difficult enough without, trying to command people's attention, which is elsewhere. So, I think it's having a look in things in the round, but definitely doing some Fermi estimates, looking at the market, how many competitors are out there, what are they doing, why are they doing it, is there a reason why they can't make it any cheaper? Can you have a really cutthroat approach where, you will absolutely cut down at the knees in terms of price, but you need volume? Or do you have the energy, the resources, etc., to get that volume, to make the thing float? You've got to look at it in the round, I think. Yes, anything to add?
Yeah, brilliant. I love those. I think one of the things to do at a very early stage for any business, regardless of whether or not this is at risk of being in a saturated market, is I think Ash Moyer calls it business model criteria setting or something like that. Yeah. Figuring out the criteria. And I might have got that wrong, but basically it's about the sizing. So if you know that you want to create a £100,000 a year business, and that's kind of going to be good for you, and expenses, probably not a big team, right? Yeah. Let's be real. What does that mean? You need to sell 1,000 things of 1,000. Sorry, you need to sell 100 things at £1,000, right? Or you need to sell 1,000 things at £100. So, or you need to sell 10,000 things at 10 quid. So figuring out what business scale you are in. Is it 100,000 business? Is it £1 million? Is it 10 million? Is it 100 million? Are you looking for unicorn status? Are you looking to make £1 million a year? Figuring that out is a really important question to be able to answer right up, because you'll then know, well, can I find 1,000 customers per year that are going to pay me £100 for something? And you can just get a sense of the size of the thing. The second point there is, if they're already being served in the market and coming to the kind of saturated market end, if they're already being served, what's going to enable them to switch? They'll switch if it's cheaper, maybe, if it's the right kind of product, or particularly if it's a tech product or it's solving a big problem, if it's 10 times better than the alternative. That's kind of what a lot of people talk about. Massively differentiated. Doesn't have to be 10 times better across every single element, but pick the thing that you're going to differentiate yourself around and be 10 times better than anybody else at that one thing. That means you need to have really specific insights about that market. And so you can really identify that this is the thing that is holding people back. This is the thing that is causing people pain, costing them a lot of money, whatever else. If only they had a solution that could do this thing, then boom, that's the kind of thing that you want to be thinking about in a saturated market. Yeah. Now, the reality, of course, is that every business competes with something. Every tech business probably competes with Excel. Right? Definitely every B2B SaaS business basically competes with Excel in some way. And there's always going to be a competitor, regardless. People are doing this thing in some kind of way, but it might be that competition is really inferior to the way that this insight that you've gathered and the way that you're going to be able to take this forward. So price up the size of the business, figure out what it is that you're looking to do with it, the scale that you kind of want to get to, at least in the first couple of years, and then see whether or not you think it's going to be likely that you could get that kind of customer base, and how quickly that might take. Yeah. That's some additional thoughts.
Super. All good. Right.
I like this. I like this format.
It's working well. Okay.
It's working well.
So, how do you go about protecting your business your business idea from it being stolen?
You don't. You don't.
Nope.
Just do not worry about that at all. If you want to protect your idea, that means you've basically got to tell nobody about it ever. And what's the one absolute certain way to make sure that your business never works is to basically make sure that nobody knows about it, right? If you want to 100% guarantee failure, don't tell anyone that you've got this thing. So you can't protect it, right? But in addition to that, if you're not the best person to be doing that thing, if you haven't found that point of differentiation which you can do but others can't, then it's a risk. People could steal your business, but if they're likely to be the best at that thing, they're probably doing it already. Ideas are not new. They go round in circles. People come up with the same idea constantly. The amount of ideas that I've told to people, oh yeah, I had that same idea. But the difference here is that an idea is worth nothing if it's not executed. So the big difference with all those other people that have had that idea before, of all those people that you've told about it that aren't going to steal it because actually it's really hard. It's really hard to do it. And they've got to be motivated. They've got to be energized. They've got to love that thing, and they've got to just, fall in love with every element of it for them to want to do it. So it's highly unlikely that you're going to talk to someone that is in a unique position right now in their lives that they go, do you know what? That's the exact thing that I'm the best at. I'm better at than you at doing it. I'm the best in the world at doing that thing. Now is the perfect time. Get out of my way. It's highly unlikely that that's going to be the case. Just do not worry about it. In terms of talking to people that could give you money, for example, for investment, you have to talk to people. never, 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 never ask anybody to sign an NDA unless you've got some kind of invention, right? A brand new thing, some technological invention that nobody else has got. Then it's worth going down the route of patenting or whatever else and protecting yourself really heavily with that. That's something that I couldn't advise you on. I've never been in a situation, I've never even thought of an idea that could come up with that kind of level of technological invention that would mean it should be patented. It's just not likely to happen. It won't happen for me, probably won't happen for the majority of us. If you're in that unique situation, then definitely speak to the right people. I'm definitely not going to be able to help you there. But yeah, you have to speak to people, and you have to speak to as many people as you possibly can. Don't just think about, like, switch your mindset 180 degrees. Go from, I can't tell anyone about this, I've got to protect my idea, to, I've got to tell every single person that I know that's living, maybe very nearly not living, doesn't matter. Just tell everybody about it. Find out everything that you can about it, and see, and to get the knowledge and the learning that you need in order to take it any further. We get that question so much, right?
It's bonkers. It really is. And do you know, through that research and talking to people, so I sometimes do that on behalf of founders. You know, I work in various different ways, and it's not until like the 30th person I've spoken to, they're like, oh yeah, like so and so, and you're like, oh damn, I did not see that. That did not come up in the research. That I don't know why. I don't know whether it was framed slightly wrong. And you're like, oh, that is the exact same thing you have planned. And then you need to go and analyse it and understand, why has that thing not come up, etc. So it's so important. And just to add on to your investor piece, if you have trade secrets, if you have something truly unique that is, you know, the absolute nub of your business, and like you say, it's really like technologically advanced, when you're in a deal room situation, deal room, data room, whatever you want to call it, with investors, and you are revealing the secret sauce, that is the time for NDAs. But it's certainly not a case of, hi, Mr. Investor, I'd like 10 minutes of your time to talk about this because we're looking for an investment, but you need to sign this NDA before I do. Honestly, they'll just laugh you away. Like, it's just not going to happen. So, yeah, when you are truly revealing the stuff that is very, very important, then people are fine with NDAs because they don't want you sharing all the secret sauce with everybody else, because then they want to protect it because they want to invest in it. That point is absolutely fine, but anything more than it would just show you as a total novice. I've even had people at networking events been like, I'd love to tell you some more, but I haven't got an NDA on me. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Not to worry. I'm going to go and have some crisps at the buffet. I'll see you later. Yeah, bonkers. Absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. Cool. Next question. I'm looking over there. Definitely need some glasses. Okay. Starting a business is really hard. We know that.
Yeah.
How do you stop yourself from burning out? It's the first part of the question. Second part, it's a bit more specific. Who should you hire first?
Ooh, good question. Okay, so number one thing, admit your humanness. In burnout in any role, any part of your world, if you do not acknowledge your humanness, you will come unstuck. It's that simple. Because at the end of the day, we are not machines. Everything is a marathon, not a sprint. So if we don't take care of ourselves, acknowledge the fact that we need to have certain basic needs met, and we need to rest, and we need to be aware of our limitations. Like, that is the first one. Emotional agility is a big thing that I'm a big fan of. So both Brené Brown and Susan David talk about, you know, these emotions and what we're actually feeling. And most people go with, happy, sad, and pissed off are the three emotions. They're actually 87. And most people really struggle with the difference between frustrated versus stressed versus, I'm trying to think of some other ones, but they have very specific nuances. And actually our brain can't cope and help you fix it if it doesn't have the label of it. So if you just go, I'm stressed, and worked up about that thing. Well, are you actually anxious? Are you feeling a little bit vulnerable? Are you feeling disappointed? Understanding that, because being able to articulate that to yourself will have a different coping strategy. And also when you're speaking to others, they can lean in and they can help you. And there is, like Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown is an amazing book. It's literally, look at me, I've got a book too, Spencer, in like reaching distance. It's a tome. It is a big badass book, but she's done a beautiful job of it. And literally it's an encyclopedia of emotions. So having something like that is really, really essential. What else have we got? Don't get too, oh, bloody hell, here we go.
Feeling the joy.
Don't even know.
It's not quite my
don't know
birthday,
how
but,
I did that. But yeah, marathon, not sprint. Don't run too fast for too long. Slow the fuck down. I know people get excited, but you will run yourself into the ground. It's that simple. Yeah, and honestly, like investors or even customers don't want people who are just exhausted. Like, you don't come with the best ideas, you don't come with the creativity, the right kind of problem solving if you've not had, rest, recuperation, some kind of social life as well. Like, you need those things that give you the joy, bring out, the right side of you, being in nature, etc. Like, there's a reason why these things are essential. Knowing when to quit as well, and knowing when to ask for help. So it doesn't have to be the big, it's the end of days, people are going to think bad of me, etc. Like, that idea was just wrong. Don't flagellate yourself over it, and that's why experimentation, doing small, sharp bursts, going, I think this is the right thing to do, this is the assumption, let's get some evidence and work on it from there, de-risks everything, makes it more enjoyable. Taking that approach to just get the right insights so that you can build. And actually, when you do, so a friend of mine, Sean, uses the analogy of like clipping yourself in. So when you fall off the mountain, you don't fall too far. So it's just like, okay, well, it's only like a little setback. It's not this almighty fall from grace. And if you are at that point where it is the proper fall from the top of the mountain, you've not been checking in enough. You've not been paying enough attention. You've got your head in the sand and the shit's about to hit the fan. And that is not the way to build any kind of business for any kind of longevity. Yeah, just getting out of your way. You will fail. It isn't. I've watched a lot of Brené Brown, as I said, in the last couple of days. You have to be okay with failure, because it's not even a case of you have to be okay with the idea of failure. You are going to fail. I've failed multiple times. I'm 3 years in. I have a business that has replaced my wage, and it was a good wage from my last job. And the list of failures is outrageous. Are they necessarily public ones? At the time, they felt quite public, but still, like, no one's ever been like, "Oh, what happened to that? That was a big one, wasn't it?" It just doesn't happen because everyone's in their own lane. So you're gonna have to be okay with it, because realistically, otherwise, you're just gonna hold yourself back and you're not going to do the interesting stuff. So being out there, being brave, doing stuff, acknowledging you will fail, and then it's like, what do you do next? And having the right people around you to lift you up, dust you off, move you on. It's not about the critics. Brené talks about this whole point in her life. There is the pre-Roosevelt quote and then post. And she had it from the TED Talk that she did. She didn't expect it to blow up. It's like 20 million views now. She thought that there was going to be an audience of 100 people. Most of her were colleagues and friends. She was going to turn up, be vulnerable. It was a point in time. Actually, it massively took off. She got really concerned about it, even though she was trained for this kind of thing. People were downright mean, and literally she hid. She shed load of Downton Abbey one day in a hoodie, like cranked up the aircon so it was cold enough in Texas that she could just kind of like nest. And she didn't want to come out of that nest because she was panicking about what was happening and, being out there and being vulnerable, and people being arseholes. Like saying, realistically, who is she to talk about vulnerability? She needs to lose 15 pounds for that. She needs some Botox before she's up on a stage. She needs all these things. Just horrible creatures. And the kind of thing that we're all really worried about. And one of the reasons why we don't put ourselves out there. And literally, post the Downton Abbey vortex, she just wanted to kind of stay in it. So she was like, how do I get to Downton Abbey? Can I fly into Heathrow? How much will it cost me? Oh, I wonder who was the American president around that time, like 1910, and found this Roosevelt quote about daring greatly and being in the arena. And it's not about the critic. It's not about the other people out there. It's not about other people's opinions of you. It is the person in there covered in sweat, tears, blood, who are moving things, doing things. They are the only person that counts, and you've got to be prepared and okay with the fact that you're going to be covered in blood, sweat and tears, and acknowledge that. And that is the humanness part, which means that hopefully the burnout won't come. So, yes. Just watch some Brené. She's a goddess.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Failure. So I've got a question about burnout.
Okay.
I don't know if I've ever suffered from burnout. I think maybe I have.
Yep.
But I've never acknowledged it.
Okay.
One of the things that I think, and I might be way off, and I might be like, correct me here, do please. Mm-hmm. When I'm working and I'm in the zone and I'm focused and I know which direction I'm moving in and I'm working really hard, that doesn't feel like I feel like I could do that forever. Yeah. I feel like I could, that's a really enjoyable state to be in. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think if I can think of the moments where I feel like maybe I've been burnt out and I haven't been able to categorize or label it as feeling anxious or feeling stressed or maybe depressed or exactly how it's kind of manifested, but I've definitely wanted to shrivel up and disappear for time, for long periods of time. But it's been when I haven't had the clarity that I've needed.
Okay.
It's been when I've been uncertain in my purpose, my direction. It's been when I've not known which of these options I should go for, or when there haven't been any options for me and I've got to try and create some options. That's when I've been at my kind of lowest and my worst points. Is that right, do you think? Or are there other things that I'm kind of missing?
Burnout is generally categorized when everything feels futile. And you're just like, I'm done. Like I have nothing more to give here. So you see people leaving like the nursing profession and teaching and veterinary, because they are just like, it doesn't matter how hard I try, nothing will make this right. Nothing is good enough. There is not enough hours in the day. I am treading water. I mean, there was a quite famous study about mice or rats treading water. And the ones that don't realise that actually they can put their feet down and rescue themselves will just tread until they just die. They give up. They're just like, boom, done, I'm out. And that's the thing. With burnout, the only way to get out of it, once you're truly in it, is to do nothing. It literally is to just walk away from the thing, have a sabbatical of some form, and just replenish. And and ironically, Brené Brown did that recently. She was just like, I'm done. Like, I am done. I'm going to do nothing but play paddleball for 6 months, and I might come back and I might not. And that's the thing. And there are things you can do on the stages to burn out, because when your nervous system's shot to hell and you think it's relentless and you cannot, it's almost like you're trying to climb the mountain, but there's a downward conveyor belt and you're just stuck in that like hamster wheel of doom, making your body realize that actually there is an end to something. So, like proper close down processes at the end of the day, because whereas in the, back in the day when we were running around and there might have been saber-toothed tigers chasing us, we would get back to the cave, we'd high-five our friends, we'd talk about it, and it'd be a case of like, oh, the tiger's not there anymore. Like, whoa, that was amazing. I just ran a tiger. Whereas now it's just like, it's relentless because there's always more work to do. Your body doesn't realise that the saber-toothed tiger is gone because it's just work and there's pings and notifications, etc. So if you don't do something, it's either, closing down the day or you burn off that energy. I mean, it's an amazing book called Burnout, and it's got a purple front cover, and it's by two sisters, and the name eludes me. But that is phenomenal. And it's got really nice Star Trek references. It's quite pop culture-y. But that literally breaks down like what burnout is, how to tackle it. There are things that you can do to stop you getting in that end state. But yeah, definite. I think the thing you were talking about at first was flow state, where it's just like, I could do this for 1,000 years. Like everything is within touching distance. I know I'm in my zone of genius. I know all the things I need to do. I'm feeling energized. I'm getting great results. Like, boom, more of this, please. And then the other end is burnout. And if you run too long and too hot, you will end up in burnout because there's only so much energy. But also, if you're not getting those positive reinforcements, things aren't going well.
Right.
Just it's constant. You know, you think about someone, a nurse during COVID. It was like, great, another day on the ward where people are dying left, right, and it doesn't matter how hard I work, how long I work, etc. It's just constant, and I feel powerless, and it's all futile. That is burnout territory, like proper textbook.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing also that you said a minute ago that I want to draw reference to again because I don't want it to get lost, which is you didn't say it like this. But I can't think exactly how you phrased it, but basically people aren't looking at you, right? No one's looking at you. The only person looking at you is you, right? Everyone else is looking at themselves. They're not looking at you. They're not sitting there going, what's Bex doing today? What's Spence doing today? You know, they don't give a shit. No one gives a shit about you, really. So get over it.
It's totally
But like they're looking at themselves, and everyone's concerned about themselves, and I'm concerned about myself, and I don't, I'm not watching and looking at anything else. And so that feeling of like failing in public, or that feeling of letting people down, or whatever else, like the reality is that no one gives a shit.
No. And if anything,
and people that do give a shit, that you give a shit about how they feel, they're the people that will get in touch with you as well.
Exactly.
Right? And they're the people that will be nice about this stuff.
100%.
And want to support you.
And I had people reach out going, it's like, oh, that email yesterday, like, are you okay? Because I was really excited about it and you were really excited about it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Because I've taken a load of learnings. And if anything, I've given myself a load of evidence where what has really lit me up over the last few months. Like what in terms of my work, because I tend to work a lot alone with my clients, when we have a one-to-one relationship, and actually being out in the wider community, there has been so many telling things. And actually I know when I'm in flow state, I can get a fuck ton done really quickly. And that is amazing because I'm going, okay, those are the things that when they are feeling congruent, I'm in my flow state. Brilliant. More of that, please. I can just go and find that. Rather than having not done anything before and been like, I could spin up this idea and still in that like ideation potential thing. Better to have loved and lost than never loved at all. Better to have tried and failed than not done anything and be a case of, that could have worked, etc. No, do the thing. Go and do the brave thing. Find out what's good about it, what's not. Take the learnings, move on. Keep going. Rinse and repeat.
There we go.
Right, okay, so I can't remember what question we're on, but we are getting towards the end of things.
I think we're on the final question.
Oh, by the way, the who should you hire first thing. I no idea. It all depends on the business. So I am going to respond to that, but it depends what your
I've got a bit of an
now.
answer about that. Not about who you should hire first, but about when you should hire. If your cost of doing something as a solopreneur at that point, or as an individual founder, if your cost in terms of time is more than it would cost somebody else to do, then you should hire someone to do that thing. And what I mean by that is it's about opportunity cost. So if you're going to spend a day doing some market or some lead generation outreach, sending emails and whatever else and trying to get people interested in a thing, and that's going to take you a day, that's a day that you can't do anything else. So are you better off hiring someone from Fiverr or from wherever to go and do that lead generation stuff, who's probably going to do it quicker and probably going to do it better because you're not an expert in that, unless you are, then go and, and you can spend your time doing something else. The opportunity cost is too great. Hire someone else to do that thing. So that's the point. You need to kind of understand what your time is worth, because at the beginning of your startup, you're not investing money usually. Sometimes you will, but you're investing time, and time is the most key asset that you've got, and you've got to be really, really tight with your own time. To know, and so think about doing that. There is another thought that I've got about this, but this is maybe a bit more controversial, and I need to try and figure out how to phrase this one. But in the early days, you should say yes to everything. What I mean by that is yes to everything that pushes your business a little bit forward, or gives you a little bit more learning, or kind of gives you some insights, or enables you to do the outreach. Because you need to understand what that customer really is saying. You need to know what that system is that you could build. So to start with, you need to do everything. And that's when you're in explore mode. So you're kind of scanning and exploring, what is the solution? Is the problem right? Is this the right solution? Is this the right one? Is this the right messaging? Is this the right positioning? Is this the right thing to be doing? And then once you kind of identify and you narrow in from that big broad direction that you could go in, you narrow into something really specific and targeted, that's when you get towards more exploit mode. And that's when you kind of got your solution, you need to exploit that in the nicest possible way. It's about getting customers, it's about getting people to buy that thing. And that's when basically you need to say no to everything other than the thing that's going to move you on. You need to say no to every other opportunity, everything else, to have that razor focused on doing the one thing that's going to move the dial for you, the one thing that is going to really count. And you should outsource basically everything else at that point. So, don't know, that's kind of some strange thoughts perhaps, but don't know whether you have any comments on those things.
No, I completely agree. And it's this thing, time is the commodity, isn't it? And often startup founders feel like they've got loads of time but not enough money. And you can go hard at something, and that's fair enough, and you can make the active choice for this is the way you spend your leisure time, this is the thing you prioritize over everything else, etc. But you've got to make sure that the outcome is worth the effort, in the same way that if you're going to the networking event, is it worth your time? Are you going to get the results from it? Don't just do it for the sake of it. I see a lot of people who are all the places all the time. And this is another thing, I never wanted the Growth Playground to be something where people just kind of like hung out. I wanted them to get a shed load of value and apply it to their business, because I'm not in the business of wasting people's time and, making sure they get bang for the buck, they're doing the thing and they move on. And also, like, you have a life and it's a limited amount of time. So we were talking earlier, weren't we? What's more important, putting your kids to bed or doing work? There's only so many bedtimes, and at the time you might be in it and thinking this is really important, I've got to do this thing, but you will come around at some point and be like, shit, that 5-year-old is now 13 and I've missed all of that. And that's really important, that balance. And whether you're building a business, whether you're just working for yourself, etc., understanding what's going on and having opportunity to connect with the people who are most important with you, the ones that will be on the deathbed with you, the ones you're building a world for and with, like, those are the people you should be spending your time with and having that point of connection. So even if it's, in terms of like, do I hire, I don't know, we had a classic example. We just had our bedroom decorated. For weeks, me and Simon were like, we'll just do it, more than capable. We did the hard bit, etc., etc. But actually, there's more important things for us to be spending our weekends on, because we work really fucking hard. So actually, having someone to come, a couple £100 to come and do it in 4 days, and it is beautiful, far more important, which means we get to spend time with each other, time with the kids, those kind of things, because you can't build from an empty cup. So, yeah, that's really important.
Love it.
Cool.
Good
Okay,
answer.
so last question. How do you know when you're working on the right startup idea?
Okay, I think there are two things to consider. The first one is you need to look intrinsically. You need to look into yourself and realize and try to figure out whether this is a giver, a provider of energy. Is this something that you love doing, that you jump out of bed to do, that gives you the kind of energy that you need? Because as we've said, it's bloody hard.
Yeah.
it is so hard. And if you don't have the energy, if you don't have the motivation, if you're waning, sometimes that happens and you can pick yourself back up. Of course, that definitely happens. But if it's over a long and sustained period of time, definitely that's not going to be the right thing for you. You really need to kind of figure out what your element is. What's the thing that you're like, kind of loving doing? And the other right thing is kind of more the external view is like, is it getting the results that you want to be getting? Are people resonating with it? Is it the right problem? Is it solving a real problem? Is it big enough? Is it going to reach those kind of milestones that you want to kind of get to? And there's loads of early ways to be able to get indicators of some of those things. Again, things can suddenly hockey stick up. You can suddenly get massive growth for things, but you need to be looking for those signals of the responsiveness in the market to your idea. And kind of that, if it's taking everything that you've got and you're getting nothing back, either externally or internally, you need to be really considering whether it's the right thing for you to be doing. Have you got any thoughts about that as well?
I massively agree with you in terms of... I've forgotten my point. What do I agree with?
That's how much you agreed.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember now. In terms of the market, so you can do anything you like. You can do anything you like with your spare time. It doesn't have to be a business. So if there's not customers there, but you love doing the thing, just do it for your own pleasure. You know, at the end of the day, if you're an artist and no one's buying your paintings, but you love painting, keep painting. Like, it doesn't have to be this transactional relationship with every element of your life. You can do a normal job, and you can go and do the 9 to 5, and then you can go and do what the hell you like in your spare time, as long as it's legal and everyone is, you know, an agreeing participant. And that's the essential thing. Like, do things that bring you joy. Play is about spending time just doing something for the sheer hell of it. Doesn't have to have a business purpose. So yeah, if you can, it's like that ikigai thing, you know, if you can find your purpose and it's what you're good at and there's people who want it, brilliant, happy days. But ultimately, if there's not people that want it but you still love doing it, do it. Who cares? Like, you know, would you necessarily have an audience for it? No, but that's not of importance. And also that equally there might be an audience there but they're not paying. That's fine. You get a value from elsewhere, and there's been lots of stuff in the news recently about, you know, the Trump election, and everyone's feeling unsettled and what to do, and they feel lost. Like, they say now is the time to create art. Now is the time to just do the thing. Just not for anyone else's purposes, just for your own introspection, self-balancing, all those kind of things. Like, it doesn't... Yeah, I speak to so many people and they're like, how can I make a business out of this thing? And I'm like, why does it need to be a business? Just do the nice thing. Or ultimately they... And I've used this story before, but, you know, wanting to run a donkey sanctuary, and the way I'm going to get there is via a tech business and investment, you know, VC backing for the next decade. There are other routes to the donkeys. Find the other route to the... If you want the donkeys, find the other routes to the donkeys. Far more important, like, don't put yourself in what is potential to be a hellscape. Even if you love it, it's going to be hard. Why put yourself through that if you just want to look after some donkeys? Go and work in a donkey sanctuary. Go and volunteer. Go and do a successful business that's not as the high growth startup that gives you enough money to help donate to the donkeys. There's so many different ways of doing it. Like, yeah, it doesn't all have to be just for the money. I don't hang out with you for the money. I just...
That's sure.
It's how I like to spend my leisure time.
Let's end it on the donkeys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what my
Lovely.
granddad would have wanted.